Prime Minister that's cutting health care. His carbon tax will cost hospitals across this country in heat, in laundry services, in delivering medical equipment. Calculations by the Saskatchewan government show that the carbon tax will cost $175 million, equal to the loss of 1,900 nurses, all to pay the Prime Minister's greedy quadrupling carbon tax. Why won't he get his hands out of the pockets of the provinces and allow our premiers to fund health care?
The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families right across the country, while it fights climate change, while it creates growth. Mr. Speaker, fighting climate change is about building a better future for Canadians. This summer alone, insurers are estimating that $7.7 billion in losses are being covered for that. That is something that we have to step up on right now. And the Conservative leader, who doesn't even believe climate change is real, wants to do absolutely nothing about it. That's not good for Canadians. That's not good for our economy.
Hospitals don't get the Canada carbon rebate. A measly little check would not replace the $175 million that Saskatchewan hospitals are going to lose to heat themselves, to power their machinery, to deliver their goods. And yet, that's what the Prime Minister imposes. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs in one province alone because of his greedy carbon tax quadrupling. Why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax and boost funds for health care?
Mr. Speaker, I will note that he voted against our plan to increase funding on health care to $200 billion over the next 10 years because he wants a two-tier system like most Conservative premiers in this country. The fact is, climate change will cost everyone in health outcomes, in growth outcomes, in harm to our economy, in harm to our future. He has no plan to fight climate change. Our plan not only fights climate change, it makes emissions lower, puts more growth on the books, and puts more money in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadians, the middle class, and those working hard to join it.
More disinformation from a flailing and desperate Prime Minister clinging to power. I voted in this Parliament to increase health funding, and in the previous government voted to increase it by 70%, more than his government had. More than that, we did not impose a carbon tax on hospitals. He claims that people are going to get checks. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs because of the carbon tax in one province alone. A phony rebate check will not make the difference. Now he wants to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. How many nurses are going to lose their jobs while hospitals are stuck paying this quadrupling tax?
Mr. Speaker, he refers to the Canada carbon rebate as a phony check. At least he recognizes that it exists, which is new from just a few months ago. The Canada carbon rebate, as defined by, investigated by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, puts more money, hundreds of dollars, back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, exactly the middle class and those working hard to join it, who need support while we fight climate change, while we reduce emissions, while we grow a stronger economy with good jobs for future generations. He has no plan for the economy, no plan for the future.
My common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But let's talk about education. The carbon tax will cost Saskatchewan schools $204 million. That's the equivalent of approximately 2,000 teachers losing their jobs, all to pay tax to heat schools in cold Saskatchewan winters. Why is the Prime Minister forcing provinces to cut teachers and education to pay for his greedy quadrupling carbon tax?
goes once again with his little performances, Mr. Speaker, the little rhymes and slogans. The reality facing Canadians right across the country, including in Saskatchewan, is wildfires, droughts, floods, issues that are being increased because of the impacts of climate change. And if we do not continue to take ambitious action, future generations will pay dearly for inaction by governments like the government in Saskatchewan that he wants to emulate. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we put more money in people's pockets while fighting climate change, and we're going to keep doing that.
Mr. Speaker, screaming and hollering, will not distract from the very serious question I asked. Can he tell us how many nurses and how many teachers will lose their jobs because his greedy carbon tax quadrupling will drive up costs to heat schools and hospitals? How many?
Mr. Speaker, teachers and nurses across the country are terrified of conservative policies that cut programs, that cut services, that cut supports for the most vulnerable, for those who work hard to care for other Canadians, whether it's their opposition to pharmacare, which would be delivering free insulin and free prescription contraceptives, whether it's investing in a school food program going to help 400,000 kids with more food right across the country. That leader has opposed the things that nurses and teachers care most about. So let's not take any lessons from that guy.
He goes from screaming and waving his arms around radically when I mention the carbon tax to bragging about a program that doesn't even exist. His multi-million-dollar school food program hasn't served a single ham sandwich, a single little bowl of Kraft dinner, not one meal to one child. It exists to feed bureaucracy in Ottawa, not kids in schools. So once again, put aside the grand dramatic performances and answer the question: how many doctors, nurses, and teachers will lose their jobs because of the quadrupling carbon tax?